Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan here for an Inside the Birds, the first official postseason Inside the Birds of what was the 2023/24 season. And Adam, I think about 11 weeks ago or so, I couldn't imagine that you and I would be having a wrap-up podcast after the NFC Wild Card round for the Eagles season. It's still hard to believe, even after seeing it for 6 or 7 weeks now.
The train wreck on what you were talking about, the train wreck that they became. I didn't see it when they slid by, just got by Buffalo and Kansas City in back-to-back weeks when they came back at halftime of those two games. So I just thought it was a show of character. Okay, that's good. But look, they've got issues. But like you said, at 10-1, I'm not expecting them to lose 6 out of 7 to end their season. Like, that's hard to believe as we speak extremely early Wednesday morning. So yeah, it's a stunner. This has been one of the strangest seasons I've seen in a long time in Eagles lore since you and I have been covering this team, and since we started the shows spring of 2018. We've seen a lot. We saw the just after the Super Bowl when we started in 2018 for the Super Bowl year, and the crashing down of Doug Peterson, how that ended poorly, and the surprise of Nick Sirianni making the playoffs in his first year, which with not a great roster, they kind of overachieved.
Mm-hmm.
Then the zenith of everything when they made the Super Bowl, and we're the best team in football. They didn't win it, but they were the best team in football last year. And then this past season, it's so almost indescribable. We talk about 2 seasons. You got the 10-1 season, and then you got the rest of it. So they actually played 2 seasons.
You couldn't be more accurate with that. This is well, and the 10-1 was like this thrilling roller coaster of a 10-1 where there were so many tight games and so many tense moments, and then 1-6 was just like one bleep show after another. I mean, it was not very competitive outside the one game that they won that again felt like a loss. So a lot to talk about in this podcast, Adam. It's going to be a really good podcast because we're going to have a pretty wild week, we suspect, coming forward. I mean, we know there's going to be changes. We'll get into that. There'll be some major changes. How major, we'll talk about and we'll find out. But you know that, like I always say, Adam, I get another opportunity to say it, and this time it's actually legitimate and worth it. But no team that makes the playoffs likes to hire and fire all sorts of coaches like the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to be going through that again this year. However, I used to say that to make fun of them. This time, I think it's pretty clear that they need to make changes at certain levels, you know? So, I mean, at very least, like position coaches and other things are going to have to be overhauled. And we know that that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, you hate to see people lose their jobs, but this is such a meltdown, an almost indescribable meltdown from this football team. So the players, obviously, they're the ones who are playing for the missed tackles, diving at air, not knowing where they're supposed to be. Patricia changed the defense. We'll talk more about that as the days and weeks progress here. We have even more. And Geoff and I, one of the things we pride ourselves in doing, so we get legitimate information and opinions, is talk to people who've got the Eagles. And whether it's coaches or pro personnel people doing advance on their opponent, which sometimes is the Eagles, we try to get these people to, this is what they see. It's not pretty. We'll get into that as we said as the days go by, but this was embarrassing. I mean, as I said on our show, our pregame show, I'm like, why the hell are the Eagles a favorite? I thought Vegas, they're great at doing lines. They were so off in that line. Their opening line was so bad. I was like, the Bucks, my line was Bucks -2. Okay, I got that wrong. They should have been -30.
They should have been. I joke with somebody about that. If you took the Eagles getting 29, you lost.
Yeah, I mean, just crazy. Unbelievable, man. They're legitimately average. They're not better than average, not below average. They're average.
Yeah. So I have some pretty good I promised some historical third down data from that game. Where if anybody needs a refresher, the Eagles were 0 for 9 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down, so 0 for 11 altogether situationally. But it is just the third time in team history the Eagles have failed to get a first down in a game, and the first time in playoff history. And Adam, in NFL postseason history, it was just the 4th time ever that a team did not get a first down in a playoff game. The last time it happened was the Arizona Cardinals in 2022 when they lost 34-11 to the Rams. And then before that was 2019 when the Colts lost to the Chiefs. 2019 was that so that would be by maybe Andrew Luck. They lost 31-13 to the Chiefs there. They did not get any first downs. 0 for 9.
It's hard to believe, man. I
yeah,
mean,
so the Eagles made some history there.
And they only had 12 first downs overall. If you count the one penalty for first that get them first down, that's 13, but 12 on actually their own. An entire game where they had to throw. It was just so embarrassing.
It really is.
It's weird though. In a way, it did remind. Obviously, this team's way more talented. It did remind me of the 2012 Eagles when Andy Reid got canned. The roster was bad, but it just seemed like they had no fight left. It was just so obvious it was over.
Right.
Whereas, how could it? Where does this bet? I get the defense is understandable because you have the coordinator change, not by total, but by who's calling defense, and Patricia stupidly tried to crowbar so many of his concepts in there, and the players had no idea what they're doing for the most part. They were trying, but they just couldn't figure it out. And it's hard to do that when you don't do this stuff in OTAs and you're trying to do it in season. Good luck to you. And then offensively, with all this talent they had, that's the thing I can't excuse. Man, the scheme is not good. I don't want to hear about last year. It's irrelevant. What you did this season. There's no act two for this coaching staff on the scheme. Once teams figured it out, they couldn't figure out how to adjust. And it became a real problem. It's hard to believe with the talent level that they have to work with. That's not good.
Yeah, and that's something we're going to talk about in this podcast and moving forward, the talent level they have to work with. Is it as talented as a team as people thought going into the year, or is it way further from the Super Bowl than maybe their 10-1 record suggested? That was a big topic of conversation on the season finale Q&A podcast, which is already up on the Inside the Birds platforms. Everybody wants to listen to that. I thought it was one of them. So this is the first time the guys just did it without, normally I give them I write up like sort of not a script, but a guideline, little things and they didn't. They're just like, forget it. We're just gonna air it out. I said, I'm all for that. I just want to sit back, eat popcorn, listen to you guys chop it up. Right. So they did a phenomenal job of just getting very real and visceral with how they were feeling and what went wrong. And I don't know that they're on the same page on how far the team is away from being really good again. So I think that's good to have a little healthy, I don't want to say disagreement, but maybe seeing it from different perspectives. So everybody should check out Q&A. There's not going to be, we decided, another Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell and Clay Harbor. I don't think any Eagle fan really wants to stomach rewatching the Eagles getting, passed on, stomped on, kicked on by the Buccaneers. But, we always have Greg Cosell on our platform in the offseason, the Intel with Greg Cosell. I'm sure we will bring back, hopefully, where he goes through free agents and he goes through the draft with us for 10 straight weeks. And Clay has said, hey, I want to keep doing more. So we'll talk about what we can do with Clay Harbor as well. I want to thank those guys, all four of them: Quentin, Jason, Greg Cosell, Clay Harbor, Derek Gunn for a great season of Gun on One, John DiFilippo for our Patreon members, our production team of James and Zach, our great listeners, our great viewers, our great interns, Jesse and Ben, who do a great job, Andrew DeCecco, of course, who covers our stuff on InsideTheBirds.com, and we'll continue that in the off season. And am I forgetting anybody? I feel like, and Sam Finkel, who does great analytics for us. I think that pretty much, and Josh Weinfeld, of course, the third and silent guy here on this operation. Yes. He's been through a lot this recently. So our as always, our thoughts are with him and everything going on, but thanks him for all the help. And we really, let's call it like it was. It was a shitty ending for the Eagles. There's no doubt it, but this was a banner year for Inside the Birds from a content standpoint. I mean, we gave everybody we could as much different perspectives from guys who played the game, from guys who coached, like John DiFilippo, Greg Cosell, who watches more tape than anybody, Clay, just a new addition, what we did to Patreon. So I enjoyed every second of it. We're going to carry it on into the offseason. Obviously, programming changes a little bit, but when you look back on it, Adam, what we accomplished this year from a content standpoint and the feedback we got from all of our great viewers, listeners, and Patreon members, I think it's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's the most content we've put out in 6 years, so we're proud of that. And so Flip is let me see, he's the head coach of Memphis because the XFL and USFL contracted. So John now's in Memphis. Showboats, hey, that's where Reggie White played.
That's right.
But John was gracious enough to help preview the game last week, and we actually talked to John, and he said, "Look, if you could come up with an idea for me to join you guys in the offseason, I'm all for it." So, it's probably going to be more on I gotta ask him how he had a couple ideas. It's more mechanics of the quarterback position, breaking down Hurts's tape, just going through the mechanics and some of the things he can improve on, which is nobody. Obviously, John's one of the, if he's not the best quarterback coach in the last 20 years in the NFL, that he's probably top 3.
Oh, God,
And
yeah.
he actually interviewed Jalen at the combine in 2020. So he was a big fan of his, and he's got some great stuff. And we were actually talking on Tuesday about what he'd like to see with their offense going forward. So we look forward to catching with John again. And tonight, Wednesday, yeah, we're doing a live stream at 8. Oh, we love doing that halftime. We were a little concerned about what that was going to be like.
Oh man, I was blown away with all the participation. Yeah,
awesome. I mean, we had no idea what to expect. Well, the funny thing is the game was somewhat, I hate to say it's competitive, but what are they down? Was it an odd score, 16-9 at halftime?
It felt like if the Eagles got something going together, yeah, they could get back into the game, even though everybody in the back of their mind knew that it was not going to happen.
Exactly. So we were all talking about that, but it was great. We just went around the room, okay, and everybody got to speak. So I felt like we're at a bar. You're just exchanging ideas. So we're going to do it again tonight, and we'll see how many of these we can get done in the off season, and especially the cool thing about that Patreon page is when something big happens, we could actually do a live stream there. It's one of the things we discovered. So patreon.com/InsideTheBirds if you want to join.
Right. We're going to have major announcements coming up soon about additions to the Patreon channel. And of course, we're going to have former Eagles president Joe Banner coming on soon. It's great. We had Joe into the season, and he literally, I don't want to say he predicted the season, but he said he liked the roster and thought they would be a good team, but he had concerns about the defense and the age doing the team in. Now, I don't know if he predicted a slide like this, but he basically hit it on the head going into the year.
So I talked to him on Tuesday, and he brought that up. Remember I told you about the age of the defense?
Yeah.
And he brought up 3 or 4 things that he remembered. He has a very good memory that he brought up when we talked to him, and he said, hey, he's going to be traveling soon. He said, if I get any time this week, I'm definitely, he said, I want to follow that up. I want to do it this week, but he goes, he'd keep in touch with me as the week progressed. So, and he doesn't mind if we keep him on long, which is really, really cool. So
awesome.
Anyway, the season ended in Tampa on Dale Mabry Boulevard there.
Highway. Mabry Highway.
Highway, right. Because I go to their camp every couple of years, and it was so impressive that you remember that, because I was thinking, like, what was that highway called? I couldn't remember it. And then here's the other thing: trying to get to the airport, there's only one way in and one way out over that bridge.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten stuck on that bridge, man. It is not fun.
I feel like Raymond James Stadium, which amazingly has not changed its name throughout all these years, right? Yeah. I feel like that is the one NFC stadium, one non-NFC East stadium that I've been to the most as a beat reporter, because I just feel like the Eagles have played there so many times in the last 20 years. I mean, they've been there for regular season games, playoff games. I mean, they're all, for whatever reason, they're always going to Tampa Bay, which is a good thing. It's a nice trip to Florida for a beat reporter, but it's just surprising. I feel like I could walk there from where I live in Jersey. I just know exactly how to get there. Yeah,
and the Yankees have
Legends Field.
Their spring training is like right across the street, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, George. It's it used to be called Legends Field, but now I think they named it after George Steinbrenner. So I think it's like Legends Field at George Steinbrenner Park or something like that.
Right. Yeah. The airport's close to there, and that's the site of the Matt Bryant. As soon as you said it, I'm like, Matt Bryant, 60? Was it 60? How far?
63-yard field goal. Matt Bryant. I was there for that.
Matt Bryant. Yeah, former Falcon kicker.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was there for the Bryce Brown game. The Bryce Brown, like 150 yards rushing game. I was there for Nick Foles and Jeremy Maclin with 1 second left to win the game. I just feel like I've been there 1,000 times.
Wow. The old sombrero was the yeah, I remember that one. That was what did they call, what was it called? What was the
Oh man, I don't remember the name of the old sombrero, but yeah,
I just remember
they called it the old sombrero.
Yeah, I was only at the new one. Yeah. At Raymond James. So
nice stadium.
Anyway,
decent stadium. But yeah. All right. Inside the Birds is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Let's pause for a moment to hear from them.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right. The Eagles' season is over. It ends at 11-6 with then a playoff loss. So I guess technically 11-7. I think the big thing that stands out as we recap not only the game, but the finish is how non-competitive that the Eagles were in many facets. And you really look at two things, right? You look at the back end of the defense, and I might go down slugging on this with you or anybody else. I still think most teams right now would trade their front defensive line for the Eagles' front defensive line. Did it take a step back? Certainly. Did Josh Sweat have regression? Is it due to his knee? Maybe. I don't know. But yes, he wasn't the same player. But if you put, in my opinion, just an adequate to good back seven behind that, I do believe the defense would look a lot better. I thought Milton Williams looked pretty good against the Buccaneers. You know, we saw Brandon Graham get in there. We did see when Baker Mayfield held onto the ball that rush got to him at times. But quarterbacks over the last 8 weeks of the season didn't hold on to the ball because they were way too porous on the back end. So I believe that's why I don't know how much they need. They need a lot in the back end, but I just think they need to get back to at least being respectable so that the front four can dominate and be good. I'm not saying, Adam, that they don't need to add to the front four or the front line, but I still think they have a lot of talent there.
Problem is the two young kids regressed in the second half.
That is
Jordan Davis, he really did not play well. I mean, I'm trying to be nice. I mean, the stuff we're getting from other teams on him is not good based on the tape study. And you heard Grant Cosell said he said he's standing up even more. His technique is poor. And what we heard of Carter, he tries to be a flash player, and then he disappears. That's not good. Mel Williams is a really good third tackle. He actually started the game against Tampa Bay. We'll see about Fletcher Cox. We'll touch briefly before we get out of here on the free agent list. See what they do with Cox. And this is just it's almost I've not seen in all years of covering the team. And people could tell us on YouTube. I like the comments usually pretty right on. Anything you've seen in your time covering the team, a second half, maybe it doesn't have to be defense.
Nothing.
Or offense. It just overall, do you remember a team that collapsed down the stretch? I cannot remember.
No, the only thing I think we talked a little bit about the 2000 and was it 2010 team that was lightning sometimes in a bottle with Michael Vick and Jeremy Maclin and LaShawn McCoy, and then they have this unbelievable comeback against the Giants down 28-0 in that game. I think 28-0. They come back, they win that game, and then the following game was the Joe Webb / Antoine Winfield Sr. game on Tuesday night, and then they just never looked the same. They just couldn't. They were just. It's like that Giants win just took so much energy and effort out of them that they couldn't duplicate it anymore. They got found out a little bit with those weak side blitzes on Michael Vick from Antoine Winfield Sr. And then a couple of teams I think were copying that. And then the Red Hot Packers come in and beat them at the link in the first round on the way to Aaron Rodgers winning his first and only Super Bowl. So that's the only thing, because that team had a lot of talent, Adam, and there's no reason for that team to have lost in the first round of the playoffs with all that talent. But then again, it was Aaron Rodgers starting to become Aaron Rodgers. So which sort of makes me wonder, the way that Jordan Love has played, not trying to compare him to Aaron Rodgers, but he's been statistically the best quarterback in the NFL for about 6 or 7 weeks now. And he was unbelievable in that playoff game against Dallas. Can he replicate that and keep this thing going against San Francisco? I think it's going to be a fascinating game to watch and see.
Yeah. And it's funny because you got Purdy, who's Mr. Relevant last year. You got Love, who a lot of teams were shocked that he went in the first round. I know teams had a third round grade on him. And he really did not look good in the first half at times. And then second half of the season, it really started in that Detroit Thanksgiving game. He's been lights out. He's so comfortable. In fact, the two best quarterbacks right now are still in the playoffs, and they're pretty young. CJ Stroud and Love are right now, no quarterbacks are playing better than they are. Pretty cool story.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So to your point, no, I've never seen an Eagles team just completely flip like that. You know, it'd be one thing if the Eagles lost some of these games, like hard fought, close losses, but eventually their deficiencies in the back end caught up to them and they couldn't carry. But they were just getting blown out. They couldn't handle things that all of a sudden were not as problematic earlier in the year or last year, like handling blitzes. I mean, that clearly became a major issue. People have reached out to us, Adam, and asked us, how much accountability does Geoff Stoutland have for this? And I think it's a good question, but I also think it's important to remember that when a team like the Giants or the Bucks send more than 5, then it becomes less of an offensive line question, because you only have 5 offensive linemen to block 5 rushers, right? So if a team sends 6 or 7, then it becomes about your running back who might be in to block, your tight end, or your quarterback's awareness on where that extra man's going to be, and then either audibling, hot routing with your receiver, whatever it is. It's not. We will definitely ask on the offensive line, and I do think that there are some players this year that just didn't play great, and we saw Cam Jurgens did struggle against Kalijah Kancey against Tampa, and also had some penalties. But I don't know that this is. I don't think when you start to break down the blame, I don't know that Geoff Stoutland and the offensive line is as much of an issue as how you handle a blitz when they send more than you can block. That was the biggest issue, because I don't think 5-man rushes gave him as much trouble as the 6s, the cover zeros, and those type of blitzes.
We've been talking about cover zero. I mean, the Niners did it. It really started with the Niners game, we were told, and every team saw it as somewhat of a blueprint. They haven't handled it well. By the way, they played a lot of 12 personnel in the Bucs game. Jack Stoll played a lot, 41% of the snaps. It's, Gainwell was there to protect, as he always does. It's almost hard to believe. Again, it's like a second season. The team that we saw in the first half, though they didn't play great. They certainly didn't. Their 10-1 record was really not reflective of the way they were playing. They were nowhere near that level of play.
Right.
But hey, they were finding ways to win. That counts. And then it all unfolded. They got. Some people said they got what's coming to them. They sort of live dangerously. And when you do that, you're eventually going to get it, and they got it, but way worse than we could have expected. That's the point.
So I want to bring up James Bradbury while we're on the point of way worse, because he obviously had a terrible season, terrible game against Tampa. I will say this. We've always said that James Bradbury is a stand-up guy, accountable, and I believe he still is. I don't think he's ever lacked effort out there. I think he's just gotten beat on athleticism. But I have that missed tackle on what was his name?
Palmer.
Trey Palmer. That did not look like a great effort. That looked like an I don't want to be here play. And if that winds up being, if he winds up not being an Eagle, which is probably going to be the case going forward, and that's the last image that you have of James Bradbury, kind of sucks. I mean, I know he had a bad year, but he had a good enough year last year, and he is a stand-up guy, and that I would, if I were James Bradbury, I would hope that people don't remember that about me, because I feel like he could have done a better job there.
Yeah, he went for the guy's shoulder pad. That was bizarre.
Yeah.
The coverages, the spacing. Just think about this. If they would not have dropped, I think it was either 7 or 6 passes. Again, it depends who's grading them. It was a minimum of 6. They might have put up over 50 points. That's how much spacing that they gave up. Otten had a great game, but he had the 30-yard drop over the deep middle on against cover 3. Like this stuff, it was just so it was such a horror show watching their defense. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, this is not acceptable.
It really wasn't. It really wasn't.
Anyway,
and I think Greg Cosell said this right around maybe after the Dallas Cowboy loss, when they were 10-3, and we were talking about their secondary. And he said, listen, we can talk about scheme or how they run into each other a lot, which is true, or they don't know what they're doing. Those would be like 4 or 5 moments over a course of a game that would really stick out. But I think the biggest issue beyond that has to be fixed and addressed, Adam, which we'll talk about, but just to really point out what we're wrong with this defense, is just the overall lack of athleticism, dynamic play, speed, quickness. Even when they don't mess up as far as running into each other or blowing a coverage, they don't close cushions. very fast. They don't pursue fast. They don't tackle well. They don't have any. They are always out athletic by the other set of wide receivers / tight ends that they're playing constantly, or running backs who burst into the second level. They just are very substandard when it comes to being dynamic and athletic.
I could not believe, and we said on the pregame show, Rachaad White's a nice back, but he has no juice. He's just not explosive.
Right.
It's the best he's looked all season. I mean, they made him look like that. That's the problem. I mean, this was embarrassing. The scheme was so bad. I look, see, this is the way someone explained it to me. Someone I spoke with, I really trust, one of my best personnel evaluators, said to me, let me explain to you how these conversations go.
Uh-huh.
So when they made a decision to give Patricia the play calling, you sit him down, you go, hey, this is what we want to do. What's your plan? So Patricia will say, this is what I want to do. We saw he try to, as we saw going forward, he crowbarred a lot of his concepts, his Belichick concepts, which are, you can't do that. So Nick should, if he told Nick this, Nick should have said, no, we're not doing that. Take our scheme that we started in OTAs, you were there, pick the ones you think that will work, and that's what we're going to do. He should have done that. Because I cannot believe that the crap that he ran, this looked like a high school defense. Am I wrong?
If you were a conspiracy theorist and you told me Nick Sirianni was trying to get himself fired, I would have a hard time disagreeing with you. Because to the audacity to try to do pretty much the same things you've been doing for 7 weeks without real major changes and trying to do better. They ran a screen. Did you see the screen where Dallas Goedert and Julio Jones ran into each other? Are you freaking kidding me?
Like, I know.
Oh my God.
So you move back to offense. How about the little I don't think Devontae Smith was looking for it. It was a pass to the left, and I think he got tackled for a loss or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what the hell? And then they had to blow 2 timeouts. Ricks one time didn't get off the field.
Oh, how about the time Ricks was getting blocked by the wide receiver as Baker Mayfield runs up the right side for a first down? He actually looked like he was trying to get boxed out. He kept backing up.
I'm like, what is he doing? You know, it's funny you say that. I forgot to mention that on the post-game show because the three of us, you, me, and Clay, were going off how embarrassing this game was.
Yeah,
it was on my notebook, but I forgot to talk about it. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm like, dude, go for the ball. What are you doing?
Yeah, the guy in front of you is smaller than you. He's a little wide receiver. It was the little wide receiver that they have. I don't know. Just push him over and make a tackle or try it. Just try, give effort, try. I don't know. It's hard to believe that it got to that point, man.
As I've said, the last 4 or 5 years that we've done this show, actually 6, because 18, but it was more in 2019 and 20. Bad football is really hard to watch, really hard to watch. It's painful and it's maddening. I'm okay. Listen, if you lose a bunch of close games, okay, you got to learn how to win, or you clearly could see good stuff when the games are close. But this crap, I mean, if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm yelling, and I don't blame you. I would throw tomatoes at the TV. What the F? This is nonsense.
You're showing your age, Caplan.
Yeah, I know. I mean, did I ever do anything growing up here? I know as a kid, I cried when the Sixers lost to the Blazers in '77.
Oh, I'm sure.
Dr. J and George McGinnis, late George McGinnis. But
yeah,
this is that's our opening little segment here. But
yeah. So
Devontae was great though. That's just one thing I want to mention. He balled out. He was awesome. What a great player. They finally got it right at University of Alabama.
Yeah, he had I would say he had a great game. I expected him to have a great game, and part of that was the Bucs are going to blitz the crap out of you. He's going to have some one-on-ones, and Jalen did a good job finding him. But I'm sorry, I got to point out when you're 0 for 9 on 3rd down and 0 for 11 3rd and 4th, then you didn't get enough from your wide receiver / quarterback / offense. So I kind of expected that there was going to be some good strikes to Devontae because you knew Bowles said, all right, I don't care. That's one guy that can get some yards on me. Let me just try to funnel all my pressure and see if I can hit and beat up Jalen Hurts a little bit, which they did. So, but yes, he did. He's every bit he should be. I'm not going to take away from Devontae Smith.
Special player. He's up right there with my quick for me for Eagles draftees. My quick 6 was awesome. And when you look at Devontae, he just balls out. I mean, he gets after it. No nonsense. Such a great player, and he's up for obviously for a contract extension now that he's played 3 years.
Yep.
And then just the other couple things here. The other thing is, and I don't understand, and I know defensively it's obviously because Patricia just tried to ask them to do too many things, so there were mental errors. But they've had a problem with penalties. The legal man downfield. How many times have we seen this the last 2 or 3 years with their offensive linemen?
It's embarrassing. That and the rub routes that and rub routes and screens. Like the RPOs, rub routes, screens. Just crazy. Like it's RPOs, their RPO game has not been great either, by the way.
They hit one, but
nothing they could do well. Yeah, they had about 1 or 2 plays. They got Devontae on one. I think the Goddard touchdown might have been an RPO as well. But other than that, just nothing. Just rip it all up and flush it in the toilet because it didn't work.
Yeah. So look, there's not much that we've covered both sides of the football. I mean, there's not much else to say, and we'll talk about some other stuff in a minute here.
Yeah. Do you agree? But as we move away from this and talk about the future, do you agree that the move from Desai to Patricia not only was a bad move, but really, I feel like it was the catalyst to them just losing their complete identity and get it? Like they weren't going to win a Super Bowl even with Desai, but they stopped being competitive. They were competitive in some games. I know they got they lost to the 49ers. Yeah. That was not competitive. Then they lost to Dallas, and that was rough too. I don't think that they would have just completely fell off the face of the earth the way they did had they not made that switch.
Well, look, Desai had some of his control removed before the Seattle
Correct.
game. It was actually weeks before that.
Yep.
But it really, quite frankly, like you said, week 13 against the Niners, they got embarrassed at home. Clearly, they lost their confidence because that's where it really started. Yes, they pulled off an amazing game against the Bills in the rain. That was an unreal game. I call it the 5 heart attack game. That was one. Well, actually, no, the Dallas was one. Maybe the Buffalo game was a 4 heart attack game.
Yeah.
And then the Niners get all started where they completely lost their confidence. Both sides of the football. They got smoked at home against the Niners. They got smoked at Dallas. The Seahawks game they should have won. That was an embarrassment. They barely won the Giants game with a comedy of errors. And then to me, I think if you want to start talking about when, if you're a fan who thinks that Sirianni deserves to get fired, you could start talking about it for the Cardinal game. You cannot lose to a bad team like the Cardinals. You just can't. The least talented team in the National Football League. I don't want to hear any excuses. You can't lose that. And then the stupidity of not taking the Giants game seriously, like having a lot of starters start. And then once you can't have that mentality. Either you're benching guys, wholesale changes, or you're playing everybody. Mm-hmm. You can't come in with it. That was a bad tackle error by Sirianni. He's culpable here. We've sung his praises. He still has had a great winning percentage. We don't know what's going to happen, quite frankly. And nothing we were hearing was great, but Jeffrey Lurie is the only vote that really counts here. So we'll see what happens. But if he somehow survives this, he's going to have to take responsibility for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's buck stops with him. It's a lot of mistakes he made. And he's in his he just finished his 3rd year. This is kind of crap that would happen in year 1. I could totally get that. Yeah. Not in year 3. Unacceptable.
You just sort of gave me an idea when you talked about all the mistakes and maybe writing a story for the website. The 5 single worst decisions in recent Eagles franchise history. The side Patricia could be one. Trading LaShawn McCoy for a linebacker would be one, definitely. Obviously, hiring Jim Washburn, which forced you to hire Juan Castillo as your defensive coordinator because nobody else wanted the job, would be up there. I could probably giving Chip Kelly complete power over the organization, right? That's got to be up there. And maybe deciding that you're going to trade for DGB, Dorial Green Beckham, and make him a starter when he was completely undeserving of that.
Did he start?
He was a star. Yeah, he was starting the season.
Oh my God. The crazy, let me just tell you the insanity of it. I was there the day. What were the chances I would be at Titans camp? the day that trade
I still think that that's the most amazing thing ever. Yeah.
And I'll never forget talking to someone high up in their personnel staff. I said, hey, DGB, man, why is he running four string? This is actually it was an hour before the trade.
Uh-huh.
Oh, he's struggling a little bit. He needs to play better. But yeah, he was a second round pick for you guys. He's a pretty talented guy, right? And the guy walked away and he didn't answer my question. I didn't think anything of it.
He couldn't even answer the question.
Right, he didn't answer it. I didn't think anything of it. And then I texted the guy, I said, thanks for telling me. He goes, I couldn't tell you. It's like, you jerk.
He couldn't. He wasn't being rude. He couldn't keep a straight face. Like,
no,
he
couldn't tell me, and I could have broken the story if he would have given me a little bit of help. And I'm so dumb. I thought that the Eagles got the better of it. It was Dennis Kelly straight up, right?
It was Dennis Kelly straight up. Yeah.
And
again, the trade itself was harmless because they weren't keeping Dennis Kelly. It was the idea that you brought in DGB and started him to be your outside X receiver when he had gotten kicked out of college, couldn't make it on the Titans, buried on the depth chart. You gave up and you thought you were just going to plug him into your program and he was going to give you production.
And never a good sign when Doug Peterson says, we're not going to overload him. He knew he'd trouble learning stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not, you can't be saying that. I was like, oh God, this is not going to end well. And it didn't. I'm fairly certain, I'm not going to look this up because I know we've talked about this in the 6 years of our show. He never latched on with another team.
You're correct. Yeah. He did not latch on with another team.
Oh,
yeah. And Dennis Kelly has more touchdown catches in the last 5 years than he does. So there you go.
Journeyman, by the way, what if he was his best summer? I can't believe that.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Anyway.
Oh, good stuff.
Okay.
All right. Listen, Adam, it's going to be a tough weekend coming up for Eagles fans because they're going to have to watch NFL playoffs and the Eagles aren't in it. So they're going to also watch some good football and remember what they once had. No one's going to want to get off the couch, but that is why all of us have HelloFresh. We don't have to. Well, maybe just to heat the oven up, right? Because HelloFresh delivers farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. There is no wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. Doesn't get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. It's 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging into your wallet. And don't forget, you can get anything you want from chicken to steak to, seafood, vegetarian meals, whatever you are looking for, they got it. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use the code 50Eagles, 50 Eagles, all one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use that code 50 Eagles, all one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, Adam. So what's next? What happens? Obviously, the big guy who plays center for a long time at a Hall of Fame level has, all indications seem to be he may have played his last game. You did you see how he kind of like hugged Jeff Stoutland at the end of the game? And
he's done. Yeah, he's done. I don't see Jason Kelce changing his mind. It's just what I find interesting is we would talk to people close to the situation. This was 2 years ago, and everyone thought he was definitely done, like he's beat up physically, and he surprised people. And they were like, "Yeah, you know what? He wants to give it a go here. Really likes Nick." And they got to the Super Bowl, last year, and he wanted to come back and give it one more try. So going forward now, unless he changes his mind, here's the question for you because. Lane Johnson was drafted to take Jason Peters' job, and then Lane loved right tackle more than he wanted to go to left, and Jason decided not to retire, so they kept it status quo. Cam Jurgens was drafted to take Kelce, to replace Kelce when Kelce retires.
Yeah.
But look, who's to say they don't keep it at right guard? The chances are not great, but who knows? And we'll see what happens here.
We'll see. I kind of think a move to center would be better for him. I think, that's where his draft plays smaller. He's more athletic.
Sure.
He's played fine at right guard. He's had some good games, had some not so great games, but I just think they're going to want him in his natural. But this is not like an Isaac Seumalo thing. Isaac was stronger. And he could play guard and play it at a really high level. I don't know that Jurgens can play it at a high level. I don't want to put anything past him. Good athlete. You could always learn, but I think center is where they want him.
Well, the thing about Jurgens at center is that Kelsey got them out of so many plays,
Yes.
bad plays, and that we talked to a player, about a year ago, who mentioned that to us, that's the thing with Jurgens is he's just going to have to learn because he's so new to the offensive line. Former tight end at Nebraska, and he got moved to offensive line with a couple years left. So this is going to be a learning experience, and this is where having Stoutland, a great offensive line coach, is so important. So we'll see. They have some decisions there, and free agency wise, we'll get more into this. But the key ones, we're not going to go over all whatever the number they have. We're just going to mention a couple guys here. Swift had really not a great season, good season. But the embarrassment of not getting him involved. I had a joke if the folks didn't see the postgame show. I asked you, is there an NFL rule, and please correct me if I'm wrong, are running backs not allowed to get the ball on first and second down? Is that like a problem in the pass game? Like you're not, is it illegal? Is it a rule? Could they get flagged for it if they get the ball in the first and second down in the pass game?
If it is, then somebody didn't tell the Niners and the Buccaneers because they throw to their running back quite a bit.
Right. So of all the indictments of this coaching staff, this is my top 3.
Yeah.
Like that's so embarrassing. So Swift is, Fletch is up, Cunningham is up. That Cunningham actually had a nice year. Really kind of hung in there, but obviously hit some injuries. Bradbury, now in terms of contract decisions, he's under just $11 million fully guaranteed. So I mean, decision you would think would be easy to walk away from him, but they have to make that decision coming up here. They just want to walk away from the contract and just owe him the money. It has offset language on it, but Vontae Maddox has 1 year left, major cap number. Byard has a big cap number, big salary. And then in terms of other free agents, this one is actually important because he was really good. Braid Mann was a heck of a find for them. And smart guy did not sign a 2-year contract because how the Eagles love to sign these 3 free agents to 2-year deals and evaluate them, particularly younger guys. So it looks like they found their punter of the future, assuming they could re-sign him.
Yeah. Going back to the linemen, it's really interesting what they decide to do with Cox and Graham, just only because of their legacies here, but really they're not kind of central to what they need to do defensively. Like if you want to bring back Cox, I know some people be like, oh, you're just old. But no, I mean, Jason Peters was old and he played well and they needed him at times. I have no problem bringing back Cox and Graham, but like you can sort of have those down the road. That's not like when you look at your list of things that you must and must not do, those 2 guys are not at the top of it at all. So it's as big of names as they are and their significance of the franchise, they're not really pivotal at this moment as much as it is figuring out what you're going to be doing on the back end from linebacker to corner to safety, and then how to reshape this offense to get better for next year.
Yeah, the only thing, Fletch was really a vocal leader this season, and you'd love to have him back, but
yeah,
the young guys got to step up. I mean, leadership is sort of nebulous. It's sort of subjective because you never know how to measure it, how important it is. But yeah, you and I have talked to players and coaches and front office people, particularly with the Eagles, who've told us over the years when sometimes the locker room wasn't good. Locker room was not good in 2020. About 2011, the Dream Team year where everybody's selfish. Not everyone, but a lot of guys are selfish. That was a nightmare team.
Yep.
There was bad chemistry. So chemistry is important though. When guys have the common goal, they're not out for themselves. They're not out trying. The knock on Hargrave was he was out there to get sacks and he's trying to get a contract, and he got a monster contract, $20 million a year. But they certainly missed him as an inside pass rusher, collapsed in the pocket. I sort of underestimated how good of a player he was. I know he didn't play the run well. I get it, but as a pass rusher, they did not have anyone to consistently collapse the pocket inside. They just did not.
No, not consistently enough. We hope in year 2, Jalen Carter takes a big step. And again, that's all going to come back to also coaching, and we'll see what happens in that realm. We talked about that, and I want everybody to make sure they're just sticking with us on InsideTheBirds.com, on social media, at Caplan NFL, at Geoff P. Mosher for Twitter or X, whatever they call it, and Instagram, because obviously if we're getting information, we'll get it there, and then we'll do emergency podcasts if we have to. We'll do emergency podcasts. We'll do more than one. As soon as stuff we find out, I promise you, we will do whatever we can to get it out on as many platforms as possible. But Adam, it's not really just coaches and players, because front office obviously could see some changes too, and we know Alec Halaby is a person who's been, name has been out there and people are interested in him. What do you expect?
So my piece for ProFootballNetwork.com, I wrote that Alec Halaby, who's one of the Eagles' 2 assistant general managers, really coveted by the Panthers. They're on him. I wrote about David Tepper's infatuation with the Eagles. He's a close friend of Jeffrey Lurie, and Halaby's a guy that they've had their eye on, and he's got a real shot to be their GM. The GM Fitter was fired, but what's his name? Dan Morgan's their assistant GM from Philadelphia.
Dan Morgan is from Philly. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, Demo's from Philly. He's
Nice.
I think that name escapes me, but Morgan was a first-round pick of the Panthers, and so if it happens, I think what they'll do, because to get Halaby out of there, it would have to be the GM, and he's got to have some kind of control. So Dan Morgan is still under contract, so I could see them both overseeing personnel. Dan is the pure, the film guy, and then Alec is the strategist and so forth to target. So if this happens, that's the way I would see it. It's interesting. I mean, it is. You can say what you want about their front office and analytics and stuff, but Andrew Barry, what's her name? Who's with the Browns? Is with
Catherine Raich.
Catherine Raich, right. You look at Brandon Brown as assistant GM of the Giants. You look at Ian Cunningham, assistant GM with the Bears, who was the runner-up to be the GM of the Commandos. So again, you could say that the Eagles don't have a great front office, but yeah, then why do other teams keep hiring these people? So they're coveted. This is what happens. It's fascinating.
Definitely. All right. So we'll keep abreast of all front office maneuvers as well. He is from Clifton Heights, Pennsylvania, Dan Morgan. So I don't know.
Clifton Heights, that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Clifton Heights.
Knew. Yeah, I met him years ago, and I just remember talking to him when I worked for Model Sporting Goods. I was working at Clifton Heights for a short time.
Right.
And he said he's from Clifton Heights. Yeah, he's a heck of a football player. And he used to work for Seattle, and then Fitter hired him and brought him over to Charlotte with him.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens. They're in a total rebuild, though, man. They have a long way to go. The guy that they did hire, Taylor Rajak from the Eagles, he's their analytics guy there. So we'll see what happens with Carolina. And then getting back to the Eagles, as you said, it's going to be very interesting next couple weeks. We're tracking whatever coaching changes they make, and then who replaces them, and scheme changes, and whether there's some names out there. If they make a head coaching change, some interesting names like Bill Belichick and some others. We'll see what happens if Nick is still there. And again, we're not saying he won't be, but if he's not, there's some not only Belichick, but some other names could pop up. But we wish Nick the best of luck and hope he keeps his job. But if he does, there's got a lot of changes to make because, they folded.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we will get into all that. Obviously, Inside the Birds podcast will be back again on Friday morning. Fresh new content for all of you. I want to thank everybody again for listening to us all season long. You have been a great viewer base, listener base, fan base, and we really, really appreciate everything. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.